Ninian Stewart is asking, how can we create funding models that enable folk without a lot of money to get into hut sites and able to afford to build a hut? Now, at the heart of that question is the fact that land is very expensive, but also, I think your book talks about this in Norway. There's no reason why municipalities and councils and the state can't play a stronger role in this and grant 100-year leases for peppercorn rents. Land need not be expensive.
Yeah, and there are, every council is sitting with land on its books. I know there's land that Dundee Council has half looked at. But yes, exactly, every council does have something it could look at this way. But I think what Ninian is actually, should, embarrassing him, but he can sit in the anonymity of the Zoom chat room. Ninian is the one who has created a trust in Falkland in the middle of Fife, which is where lots of these huts, about a dozen huts, I think, maybe I'm exaggerating, have been built entirely really through his generosity with the land. So he is, Ninian, I hope you'll take this the right way, one of the eccentric landowners that I'm talking about. But the point is then, who gets them? And the reason that I am a bit dogged about these working class sites that were set up after the war is precisely because of that, because they give the people who most need to get access to the country and getting out of cities, they give them somewhere to go. And that's what's beautiful about Carbeth, was true of Barry Downs until they got evicted, and is true of caravan sites all over Scotland, because mostly hutting sites were turned into caravan sites. What you could do, I think, is there are development trusts all over Scotland, which operate, many of them, in some of the most deprived and challenging communities. That's the beginning of forming a little kernel of a piece of self-organization. I would, and I've always suggested, that anybody with land could easily connect with a nearby, within an hour's travel, development trust, and get the development trust to be the anchor tenant, which then sort of organizes. This is exactly the model that worked on this island, Linoya. They were very smart to create an organization that was the sole tenant with the state. And that meant individuals didn't get picked off. They all got picked off in Carbeth. It meant they could try and get a bit of community muscle going. It meant they learnt how to run things. It meant all sorts of things. Just as a tiny detail about Linoya, they have divided up their island, which has about 250 huts, into little neighborhoods of about 8 to 10 huts. And these roder, as they're called, have to organize beer nights, crazy golf, hedge cutting, and various other stuff like that. You've got to do it. And who organizes it goes round each year to a different person. So that if someone middle class or professorial comes into the midst of it, then he or she has to organize the crazy golf, the beer nights, and the hedge cutting. This is a way to try to stop the place becoming gentrified. And that's quite important. You can set up new hutting sites, I think, quite easily, but not if you make it first come, first served. Because that always means that those who are most adept at getting themselves organized will be straight in there. And
Yep.
Right now, there's so little access that I think it's most important that it goes to people from the most difficult areas who have been the most enterprising in setting up development trusts that are doing phenomenal things, but just aren't being connected with.